leaving the myths of Mesopotamian behind, where ancient wonders like the Hanging Gardens maybe only existed in the longing memory of a queen. We're heading west in today's Explainer. We're journeying back in time to ancient Greece. And, not to Athens, at least not yet. We're heading to a place much older, a place so profoundly sacred the ancients literally believed the gods walked right there among mortals. Welcome to this sensory journey into one of the absolute most breathtaking lost wonders of the ancient world.
To really get a sense of what this was like, I want you to step onto an imaginary boat with me, all right? We're crossing the Aegean Sea. Try to anchor yourself in the actual physical senses of this ancient world. Feel the ocean spray. Breathe in that salty air, the distinct smell of wet wood on the hull of the boat. And then, as we start getting closer to land, that ocean scent slowly gives way to the crisp, fresh aroma of pine trees and wet earth. We're finally arriving.
Section 1. Journey to Olympia, the Sacred Valley. Okay, let's dive into this. This place wasn't just another bustling city. It was a holy sanctuary completely dedicated to the divine. Picture a lush green valley gently carved out by the Alpheus River. The air here is incredibly fresh, a huge contrast to those dry deserts of the east we just left. And right in the middle of this vast open-air sanctuary stands a temple. It's built in the classic Doric style, featuring these massive limestone columns covered in pristine white stucco, and it's topped with a marble roof that just gleams blindingly in the bright Mediterranean sun. It looks deceptively simple. The Greeks generally avoided crazy architectural exaggeration, But what was waiting inside that beautifully simple exterior, that was something that made grown men physically tremble.
Section 2. The Challenge of Phidias, the Sacred Workshop.
So we are stepping into the realm of an absolute master, the most famous sculptor of the entire Greek world, an Athenian named Phidias. This is the exact same genius who crafted the magnificent statues of the Parthenon. And he was handed a commission that was, quite frankly, almost a provocation to the heavens. He was asked to sculpt Zeus himself, the king of the gods, father of heroes, ruler of Olympus. And it couldn't just be an ordinary statue. No, it had to be something that would make the faithful literally forget how to breathe. The year was roughly 435 BC. To pull off this massive undertaking, Phidias moves to Olympia and builds a colossal workshop right behind the main temple. And we know this for a fact because thousands of years later, archaeologists actually dug up its foundations. Right in that very spot, they found his ancient tools, his terracotta molds, and even scattered little shards of ivory left behind from the creation of a god.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this daunting, kind of highly academic term right here, chryselephantine. It sounds super complex, I know, but it translates to a sheer extravagant reality. It simply means a monumental statue crafted entirely out of pure gold and ivory. And we are talking about staggering, almost incomprehensible quantities here. Phidias used 2,500 pounds of pure gold. That is literally over a ton. And he used enough ivory to require the tusks of an entire herd of elephants. Just incredible.
For years, Phidias labored away in that workshop. Just imagine being an athlete or a pilgrim visiting for the Olympic Games, right? You walk into the workshop and you get to watch this crazy step-by-step process unfold. First, Phidias constructed a massive wooden skeleton, the literal bones of the god. Then he layered these incredibly thin, slightly translucent plates of ivory over the wood, meticulously carving them to perfectly mimic the rippling muscles of a divine chest, arms, and face. And finally, he brought the whole thing to life, using precious stones for the pupils, literal threads of silver for the eyebrows, and just unbelievable gold detailing.
The sensory details of this gold work are honestly just staggering to think about. Zeus's hair and beard were crafted from wavy, solid gold, and people who saw it described it as flowing like burning rivers. Wow. And the mantle covering his lower body, it wasn't just some flat sheet of metal. It was a wildly complex tapestry of precious materials. A golden cloak intricately worked with inlaid blue glass, lotuses, lilies, and exquisite little animal figures. Section 3. Gold, Ivory, and Majesty. The Grand Reveal. After years of relentless, exhausting labor, the masterpiece was finally finished. The massive bronze doors of the temple were thrown open, and as the natural sunlight just flooded into that inner sanctuary, well, nobody who saw it was ever the same. Before your eyes even made it up to the god himself, you were immediately confronted by the breathtaking base of the statue. Zeus sat upon a majestic throne that was honestly a masterpiece all on its own. It was this overwhelming, complex tapestry of carved ebony, ivory, gold, and precious gems. The armrests and the back were sculpted with mythological figures. You had the Graces, the Seasons, enigmatic sphinxes, and winged victories. And beneath him, his feet rested on a wooden footstool that was physically supported by solid golden lions. 12. That is the height of the seated god in meters. To put that into perspective, it's nearly 4 stories of a modern apartment building, just entirely dominating the interior of a temple whose ceiling was roughly 13 meters high. And this brilliantly illustrates the cramped, intense space that conveyed the really explosive power of the sculpture. The head of Zeus practically scraped the marble ceiling. The ancient Greeks actually used to say that if Zeus ever decided to simply stand up, he would effortlessly tear the roof right off the temple. It was a constant visual reminder of his contained explosive power, just sitting there patiently in the dim light for over 800 years. Section 4. The gaze of Zeus, a serene power. But despite its towering height, it really wasn't the sheer size that left the deepest impact on people. It was the face. Phidias didn't sculpt the wrathful, thunderbolt-hurling Zeus you read about in Homeric epics. Not at all. He sculpted absolute serene power, a deep, knowing calm. Lips slightly parted as if he was just about to speak, eyes made of deep stone and ivory that seemed to patiently follow you as you walked through the dimly lit chamber. Just take a second to absorb the profound psychological impact this must have had on its visitors. The ancient Roman writer Seneca actually recorded this unforgettable thought. He said, "The statue of Zeus not only beautified the temple, but also made it sacred. Look at it and you will see the very majesty of God." The ancient Greeks truly believed the divine had blessed the work. There's this amazing legend that when Phidias finished the statue, he prayed out loud, asking Zeus for a sign that the sculpture was pleasing to him. And at that exact moment, bam, a thunderbolt violently struck the ground right beside the temple. It left a deep scorch mark in the earth, a literal fissure that the priest proudly displayed to pilgrims for centuries as absolute proof that the god approved of his own image. And remember, just footsteps away from this temple, the Olympic Games took place every 4 years. Imagine the competitors, these naked athletes, slick with oil and completely covered in the dust and sand of the arena, stepping into the cool shade of the temple for their big events. As they looked up into that cold, eternal ivory gaze, they felt a profound chill run right down their spine. Because even the victors, the ones crowned with nothing but a simple wreath of wild olive leaves, they knew instinctively that human glory was painfully temporary. But the gaze of Zeus, that was eternal. Section 5. The end of an era. Emperors, fire, and ashes. For nearly 1,000 years, this magnificent creation reigned supreme in Olympia. It was visited by Roman kings, highly respected by conquering generals, but as time marched relentlessly onward, this wonder of the ancient world found itself getting increasingly vulnerable. There's actually a bizarre, kind of chilling anecdote about the mad Roman Emperor Caligula. He gave the absolutely insane order to have the magnificent statue dismantled, brought all the way to Rome, and to have Zeus's head completely replaced with a carving of his own. But legend says that as the workers set up their scaffolding, the great statue suddenly let out a laugh so booming and terrifying that the scaffolding collapsed entirely and the workers just fled for their lives. The Christian bishop Theodoret later recounted this story with a very highly satisfied smile. Let's move to and see how this builds toward the statue's tragic, incredibly rapid demise, because time is far more ruthless than any mad emperor. By the 5th century AD, the Christian emperor Theodosius II banned the Olympic Games entirely, basically viewing them as a pagan relic. The magnificent statue was carefully torn from its ancient home, entirely dismantled, and transported far, far away to Constantinople, which is modern-day Istanbul. There, it was reassembled as a mere collector's item in the private palace of Lausus, a wealthy Byzantine nobleman. And then, around the year 475 AD, complete catastrophe struck. A massive, devastating fire ripped through the palace of Lausus. The intense, blinding heat of the flames consumed the great masterpiece. The meticulously carved wood inside carbonized into brittle ashes. The translucent ivory plates that formed the god's skin warped, cracked, and just melted away. And the 2,500 pounds of pure gold, the burning rivers of his beard, the gleaming tapestry of his mantle, liquefied in the inferno, literally flowing through the stone streets like liquid tears. The king of the gods vanished forever into the smoke. So the crucial point is the absolute physical erasure of this wonder. Nothing survived that fire. Not a single fragment of ivory. Not a solitary pleat of gold. If you visit Olympia today, you're only going to find the empty footprint of a god. Just an open field of fallen columns and stone blocks, marking where that magnificent throne once stood. All we really have left of Phidias's masterpiece are the awestruck poetic descriptions of ancient writers, tiny worn engravings stamped onto ancient coins, and the longing sketches of Renaissance artists trying to imagine a majesty they could never, ever see.
Which leaves us with a lingering, truly haunting thought. Today, Zeus is no longer there. But if you stand very close to those ancient fallen stones in the empty ruins of Olympia, and you close your eyes in the total silence of that vacant temple space, do you still feel a slight, sudden weight in your chest? As if someone with eyes of stone and ivory, sitting high upon a golden throne, is still patiently watching you. The statue may be gone, for sure,